On this episode of Star Trek Universe, you've heard of bananas in pajamas, but Apollo prefers palamas in pajamas. We're watching Who Mourns for Adonais after these mystery Apollo gods of Greeks take them a peek. Mortal titties. Welcome into Star Trek Universe. We are continuing our journey, taking Effie through each episode of Star Trek. For the poor lass has never seen it before. I am David C. Robertson. I've seen it so many times. No,
I am the Effie the relevant Effie that is in the it's me. I've seen it for the first time.
That somehow insinuates there's an irrelevant Effie that we have somewhere in this cast.
Well, I mean, she's irrelevant, so she's not on the cast. She's in the basement.
Okay.
Where she belongs.
All right. I'll ask you more about irrelevant Effie when we get to the episode Mirror Mirror.
Okay. Sounds intriguing. Looking forward to that one.
Parallel realities, baby.
I mean, she's in my basement, so technically that's this reality, right?
Oh.
Like,
she didn't come through a portal.
Well, possibly, but at that point you're an immigrant, and I respect that, and you live here now, so you're an inhabitant of my reality,
okay.
and I'm not gonna ostracize her for her origins or whatever.
Right, unless she's pure evil.
Well, I mean, at that point I'm just gonna judge her for her morality and her lack of basic decency,
sure.
but not necessarily. I'm not going to assume that all people from her reality are then going to be evil, because that's just kind of short-sighted, That's kind of like saying all specific alien species are like all evil. It's like there must be a Klingon or two who is fine.
Yeah.
Just kind of rebelling against the system and getting murdered, and you never know.
Yeah.
It's no space racism for me. It's just It's not happening.
All right. Is it racism if it's a whole universe?
I guess there's racism, then speciesism, then plane of existencism.
Can't wait to talk about Mirror Mirror.
That's a mouthful, really. We'll get there.
All right. So Who Mourns for Adonais? I really enjoy this one. It is so over the top. It's one of the episodes that absolutely permeated. The imagery of the crew standing there looking at this 50-foot Apollo is absolutely iconic and so silly it's memorable. And it's also like a really tragic story, but Apollo's also, you feel bad for him, but he's also a dick.
Yeah, he's really good at getting both feelings out of you.
Yeah.
He's great at being a reprehensible being, and yet it does hit when he's like, oh, my friends, and has to join in the giving up on being what he used to be. There is a sadness in his longing for the good old days and the time he used to be young, in a sense, and it's
Well, it's interesting.
Odd.
It's one of those ideas that I really like, that like Neil Gaiman and others have done so well, whereas like gods can't exist if you forget them.
Yeah. That's great. And just the core concept of, no, the gods were just real, but not necessarily in the mythical sense, just in they seemed like gods to us back then. Strong start, just out the gate. This works. And then it's not even it doesn't strike me as, they can't exist when they're being disobeyed. Like, he doesn't like it a whole lot when they laugh at him and all that, but it isn't directly hurting him necessarily. It's mostly just pissing him off. It really has to come to that moment of realization of, no, I need to leave because there's nothing left for me here. Mm-hmm. Which is in a way far more sad, because there's an agency coming from him, trying to come to terms with, I guess there is no more paradise as I had envisioned it, because, turns out humans have their own vision of what the future should be.
And despite the somewhat monotheistic
That one fucking
insinuation.
line. Oh, yeah, yeah,
They,
yeah.
you know, Kirk and his crew are very atheistic. They're very humanistic. We've outgrown gods. And then we find the one, you know, which is
that's
fun for world building because they've carried it through. There are people who still believe in like the Judeo-Christian God in this future, even in current Trek.
Apparently, I would also hope that as we continue through other shows, that will be expanded to include I don't know, anything other than just Christianity, because it is very obviously in the 60s like, we know what they mean. They do not mean the Abrahamic God in Islam. That's not what has survived. Like, we know. But like I'd expect there to be more, but it did strike me as odd purely because outside of that one line and throughout the show, I feel it hasn't been all that in your face at all that they're anything other than, you know, atheist, agnostic, whatever.
Yeah.
Because there's just we don't really seem to care. We love humanity, and what that means is what keeps coming up. But then there's you know, the one we got to throw a bone to the Christian audience watching this in the 60s.
Yeah.
And that's it's understandable, but it's kind of a shame. Like because it does force everything from now on to also continue doing that. Because if you had basically left it with, well, Pike's time, there was still like the Hellfire thing, but now we've gone a bit further, but if in this era, then every prequel has to have it, then every, you know, like it does make it, and it's just the Western centrism of like, oh no, the Christian faith, that'll be there, and I'm like, well, it survived for a while, it probably will for another while, but there's no reason to assume it will be the final one, or that it won't fade like many other religions have. And it's very logical, but objectively, I feel it's a lack of imagination to an extent.
And look, I'm probably, you know, remembering it incorrectly, but, you know, there isn't that much reference to it in the rest of Star Trek.
Oh, thank goodness.
Yeah, like we had that
We're avoiding this shit.
You know, when you talk about the cage and he's in hell for a second, and then the Telosian says, "From a myth you heard when you were a child," or whatever.
Yeah, and that's fun.
In Discovery, they expanded on that a little bit by having the character of Pike actually have some semblance of faith and questioning what that means for him, with knowledge of his future and some crazy shit that goes on.
Yeah, because determinism and faith is deeply involved with each other. That's fucking interesting. Go for that. It's just, this was such a strong assertion of this is what our society stands for, as if it's a monolith still. And by still, I mean the way we pretend. Yeah, it's we find the one God. Like, it sounds like, okay, no room for nuance or anything, no room for other human, like, what are we doing?
I have a different take.
Okay.
I have a totally different take.
I'm curious.
Yeah, like, if you listen to the way Shatner says that, you know, he's like, you know, he says, we find the one substantial. But the way he says it, it's like, yeah, we're good with just one. That's enough. Like,
yeah.
It's almost,
we're still dealing with the one asshole. That's fair. Yeah, you could easily take it that way. There is an undertone of we've got plenty on our hands with just the monotheistic religion,
especially with like the idea that, like, I am like 1,000% sure that Roddenberry put that line in to make networks happy.
Oh yeah, no, that makes absolute sense. I have no idea what else could be the reason. Like, it is very much a line of like, ooh, we're doing something slightly blasphemous by including Greek gods. And then, let's give a nod to the evangelicals tuning in. Like, we can't have that many angry letters once again, because we already have one character with pointy ears. So,
yeah, I love that they didn't at all really question whether or not he was Apollo.
Yeah, yeah, that's just a given at a certain point.
Like, we've got like,
otherwise,
yeah, I've never
who
met a
cares
god.
about this guy?
Never met a god before. Yeah, you still haven't. Like
Yeah,
Kirk's already like, okay, what if all these guys were just aliens?
Yeah.
But
it's just we're still looking up to. Yeah.
But what bothers me about it, though, bothers me about Kirk's flippancy is Kirk is totally just in this mode of like, I reject anything that is superior to human beings. We will not be slaves. We will not be anything. It's not until the end, after they've basically like made the guy sad enough to kill himself.
Pretty much.
Taking away his like power source and shit.
Yeah.
Like, he's like, man, we could have learned a lot. Would it have really hurt us to just bring a couple of laurel leaves? Jesus Christ. What's wrong with us?
Yeah, that ending really just also struck me as like, well, you apparently you thought so a minute ago. Like,
yeah. Which, I don't necessarily like. I wish it would have been cool to see an episode where like Kirk and company were like, hey, can we talk for a little bit, learn something from you? Yeah, let's pretend that we're going to be these servants to you, learn from you, because we've actually got like an invaluable source here. You're like the last of the freaking Greek gods. Let's talk to you for a minute and find out what
you have. Some electricity shit, some ways of getting energy across time and space that's pretty useful. Could be interesting if harnessed.
But that dude,
and then you could have the turn of like, I want all of you to stay forever later on when he wants to get the whole ship down.
Yeah, still
works. But there is that the ending is kind of weird, where it's like, no, you've been telling me the entire episode that it's not a good idea to go gather laurel leaves. Like, no, fuck slavery is basically the whole thing, except when we do it ourselves. But no, it's the continuous. We need freedom. We need our own. It is again a sort of combination of we need our freedom and we need the obstacles that you are trying to take away from us. It's sort of taking a more of a middle road than a full on paradise, like we've seen before. But it fits within the paradigm, I guess. Have we seen much of this writer before? I didn't recognize the name. I didn't remember if I'd seen him before.
I didn't even pay attention to who wrote it.
Gilbert Ralston.
Oh, nope.
Exactly. That was my response. Fair enough.
I know,
but I
believe Gene L. Kuhn. I did see something where like it said, Gilbert Ralston's original story, drawn from a premise by Gene Roddenberry, was heavily revised by Gene L. Kuhn.
That makes sense.
For it to become the episode is ultimately featured. Kuhn remained otherwise uncredited for it.
That goes without saying.
Mm-hmm. So, but here's the other thing though. I want to touch on with like as presented, and I don't know if they intended it to be this way, but as presented, Apollo was not at all in any way interested in actual conversation with these people. He just wanted worship. Worship, slavery, worship.
Give me attention.
Yeah, and he wanted to bone.
That's a good kind of attention, to be honest. Yeah, which it fits with Greek mythology because gods be horny. But so that perfectly fine with that. If anything, she's a little easily like. But maybe that's because he like grew to 50 feet tall and she could look up his skirt, and I don't know. But other than that, I have no explanation for why she is just so smitten. Because he is a dick in many ways.
Yeah, he's a terrible, terrible person. But she sees something in him that like, And I don't love her characterization. Like from the onset, we have McCoy saying, I'm not sure I like that. Scotty's a good man. He thinks he's the right man for her, but I'm not sure she thinks he's the right man. On the other hand, she's a woman. All woman. One day she'll find the right man and off she'll go out of the service.
Yeah, that whole
they set
scene.
the tone.
Oh, God. Yeah. And it is a deeply misogynist thing where it's like, oh, we're still very much in the future where, you can't be a woman and have a job because you'll have to leave the service if you meet a guy, which is weird because we've already seen them get married on the fucking ship and then die. But aside from the dying part, like, you can just still serve.
Yeah.
But apparently only if you marry someone from the service. But that shouldn't be uncommon given that you're on a ship with them for hundreds of days.
Yeah. And at the end of the day, McCoy was right. Like, because she's like, oh no, I love this guy. I love Apollo. He's a great guy. I don't know. What do we want to go back to the ship for? He's going to help us out. He just wants us to have
exactly.
a life
Because
of
it is very much the setup for, oh, she's a terrible judge of character. She should be with Scotty if she had any taste, but like, she's a skank. That's the undertone of like, she'll find a man. She's all woman, but like there's so much in that little exchange where I was like, what are we doing?
Yeah.
Where is this going? And she isn't very likable. Like, so I have no reason to defend her, but it is very much oh goodness.
Yeah. That's a rough portion.
Yeah. She starts off as just an excuse for Scott to run after Apollo and get shocked, I guess. It's a good demonstration of his powers. It is, well, if anyone is emotionally unstable in this episode, it's not her. She's very consistent in her interests.
Yeah.
He, however, is very impulsive, bit reckless, if you will. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, she is ultimately swayed by Kirk's like weirdly jingoistic, humanistic rant.
Yeah. It ended up being weird. It like when he grabs her hand and he's like, human against human flesh, and like I was like, what? How is this going to convince anyone?
There is
this is just creepy.
There is a line in there that I don't think I put down anywhere, but I liked it, where that he's in the middle of that, where he referred to them as bits of flesh and blood floating in the ether of the universe or something like that, and I was like, oh, that's good imagery. I like that. But also, you guys are on a mission. Is that really what you are? You're just like wandering and just drifting about. I don't know. Like,
yeah.
I do like that a god cannot survive as a memory. I love all of that stuff.
Yeah, that's pretty. It's just the it felt a bit contrived to have the Kirk speech that just sort of also feels like making a pass at her at the same time, which is like a no, you should stick with your own kind sort of, where I'm like, this is we're in the realm of speciesism again, I guess.
Yeah.
But it's just odd.
I will say I never
also,
got the
last
sense that
time
he
we
was
were
making a
fine
pass
with interspecies relationships when it was, a companion and anyway.
Yeah.
But now it's a godlike being, and that's fucking scary. Like, stick with your own kind, woman.
Well, it makes sense.
There's some parallels there. Ooh,
like Kirk
I don't
is
like that thought.
Kirk is manipulative when it suits him.
Oh,
and
absolutely. Yeah.
There is something to be said for, like, if she doesn't listen to what Kirk's got to say here, if she chooses to stay with Apollo, they are screwed.
Yeah.
They're done.
But it just feels less like it's hard to buy into him convincing her when what he's saying feels so out there that I'm just like, what is he going for? Like, is this if it's well written and I understand the point and the arguments he's trying to make, like it just feels hard to make that leap to, oh, and now she's like, well, I guess I have my orders and I should, because she does, she executes the orders quite well. Like, that scene is much better where she taunts him. That's fun. But how she gets there is just, it's not the most convincing speech I've heard Kirk give.
Yeah. And I posit that Kirk should have not been the one to give her any kind of speech. It should have been Scotty. He was the
Yeah.
obvious setup.
Exactly. That would have made sense. Because it is very much the love triangle you're setting up. Like, but if you stick with us, and then like you could make it a thing, or you could not make it a thing. You could throw in whether or not you're interested in me, like our humankind or whatever the fuck. You can still make that argument. It just didn't quite land. But yeah, it should have been Scotty. Absolutely.
I have to say, though, I've always been in love with the idea of the Greek gods being aliens.
Yeah, I get that.
I've been talking about this for years and liking this idea for years. You know, when you start to look back at like religious texts and stuff and kind of start thinking about how it could piece together. If you look in Genesis and you're like, okay, well, if there is some, some solid truth that inspired the rest, what are we looking at? Like passages like the sons of God, came down and found the daughters of men to be fair and made with them men of great renown. That sounds like the Greek gods to me. That sounds like some alien
Like
species.
a sub, yeah.
In the Bible, your study Bibles and whatnot will tell you that's the Nephilim. Those are fallen angels.
Yeah.
Maybe, but if we take all of it as extraterrestrial, because, if you take God and you say, well, God has to be, by definition, extraterrestrial, you cannot be terrestrial and make the Earth.
Yeah, that's weird.
You have to be extraterrestrial.
You were there. Yeah.
God is, by definition, extraterrestrial.
That's a semantic thing, like easily, so, yes, sure.
Yeah, and I'm a huge fan of the idea of, whatever, can't be explained by science, people take as supernatural when it's all fun. There's some explanation. There's some root to every story. Something came from somewhere.
Yeah,
I believe. So
that's interesting. Yeah, we also, I would be remiss not to mention that human beings have a wild imagination. And I quite appreciate them for it. Because, fiction is lovely, and we've been telling stories for longer than we've been writing them down. So that's throughout oral tradition. Yeah, someone thought of something, and it became a refined version every iteration. And then we stopped iterating because the word was holy, and it was definitely translated like this the first time, except every time we translated it since. Because there aren't that many people who read Hebrew and Greek. I don't know. But it's always fun to use fiction as a way to mix religious texts and ideas with another type of explanation, a different context. And it's easier to do that in the 60s with Greek mythology than it is with Christian mythology, but the same thing applies, and I love me some Greek mythology. And
I have memories as a child of Kirk saying that line about the one is sufficient, and having relatives be like, "Oh, Kirk knows what's going on. Oh, they believe in God in Star Trek," and I'm like sitting there going, do you not realize that, like, this entire episode has all been screw religion, screw God? The whole thing.
Yeah, like, fuck worshipping anything, like, let us do our thing. Yeah.
I'm like, they couldn't, they had to say that because they were on the TV in the 60s in America. That's what happened.
Yeah.
If you look at...
to placate people like you.
Pay attention to any damn thing else in the episode, you're going, oh...
Nah, we're not doing that. And the way you worship Greek gods, that's wrong. The way you worship a Christian god, that's perfectly fine.
Yeah,
it's the same word, but there's no laurel leaves, so it's fine. If you had to, if you had to sacrifice a deer or something, different story. But now, no, it's fine. Just shame yourself into a lifetime of trauma. It'll be fine.
It made me laugh that Spock reminds Apollo of Pan, who always bored him.
Yeah.
I enjoyed that.
That was an interesting throwaway line, yeah. It's just let's have a different cast down below this time, and it was fun to see Spock in command for a bit, like
Yeah.
because we've seen a lot of Scotty in command the last while, so it was good to switch that up again.
Yeah. Now, as much as I hate that whole bit where McCoy is like, she'll be a woman, and she's all women, and she'll be out of the service as soon as she finds a man.
Yeah,
I love how Kurt responded, and he's like, I like to think of it not so much as losing an officer as gaining. Actually, I'm losing an officer. Like he's like sets it right back. Like, no, they're both officers. Damn it.
Yeah. Oh boy.
I love how much they have to keep Chekhov in check here. I am Apollo, and I am the Tsar of all the Rushes. Chekhov, stop. You know?
Come on, don't mock the guy in his face just yet. He is growing on me very quickly. He is very fun.
And by the way, Minsk is not in Russia, but I mean, I love that he's like talking about the Cheshire Cat. He disappeared like the cat in that Russian story. Don't you mean the English story, the Cheshire Cat? No, Minsk perhaps. Oh, Chekhov.
Yeah, it was like thinking of it, like, no, maybe it has to be further east at least.
So I know you haven't gotten here yet, but when Apollo is screaming, "You will gather laurel leaves, light the ancient fires, kill a deer, make your sacrifices to me, Apollo has spoken." This felt so much like a rant that a character like Apollo would have in Lower Decks. Like, and they would totally just be like, no, it's another Greek god or an alien pretending to be a Greek god. Yeah.
Oh, that's delightful.
And when he screams, "Kill a deer," I lost it. That shit was just funny. Like, gather the laurel leaves, light the ancient fires. Yeah, that sounds appropriately Greek. And then all of a sudden, kill a deer.
Oh, that's very appropriate. It's just I hadn't seen a deer anywhere around, but
I hadn't either. But also, I think it's just because killing a deer, shooting a deer, that's shit we do here. You know, it doesn't feel like that ancient world removed. That feels like my dad's going, "Kill a deer, boy." You know, like.
I guess some things survive. There is, more of an arc to it, I'd argue, when you're using a bow and arrow instead of a shotgun, but rifles give you a bit of an unfair advantage over deer.
Mm-hmm.
But
they're pretty wily, though, I hear. I've never done it, but I've known plenty of guys who were like, "I'm going to go shoot a deer," and then they come back sad.
Yeah, duh. You fucking killed something beautiful?
No.
And what the fuck are you going to do with it?
No, they come back sad because they were not able to kill anything.
Oh, that is also... Oh, that's better. That's better. The people who really want it, don't deserve it.
Almost had it.
Yeah, poor thing. Yes. 1-0 for nature. That's why they have eyes on the side of their heads. They want to run away. That's what deer do.
Yeah, it's true. That is what they do. So according to Alan Asherman's The Star Trek Compendium, the original ending to this episode, which was abandoned because of network censors, would have revealed that Palamas was pregnant by Apollo.
Oh. That's very Greek, but also you're not doing anything with that because it's like you're never seeing her again, probably. So,
if only this was a kind of show that would. Oh my god, that would have been so cool.
If it wasn't episodic, you would have a demigod walking around, that would be fucking interesting. But
Dorothy Fontana said the network absolutely would not allow that. Oh my god, intercourse outside of marriage. Usually we could sneak by a lot of stuff, but it was ultimately
nothing
stricken.
That gets anyone pregnant. Okay.
Now, interestingly though, in Peter David's book, Star Trek New Frontier, is a book, his book series. It was a whole series that Peter David got to do of novels. The character Mark McHenry is a descendant of the child of Apollo and Carolyn Palamas, revealed to have been impregnated during the events of this episode, and has at least some of Apollo's powers.
Cool. That works. So we'll go with it, because really, there's no way she would instantly know just yet, so that's fine.
Yeah. I love it. I'm glad I think I have all of those books. I need to read them.
Yeah, that's always a thing. There are
It
so
is.
freaking many.
I like Peter David anyway.
That helps.
There are
If you're
so
gonna
many.
read any, better read the ones you probably will like.
Yep.
I am never getting into the novels. It'll take years. Like we're not even. No.
But you don't have to read all of them. You could just like.
No, that's true. But there's so much shit I haven't read in just the bookshelves I have behind me. Like it is.
The great thing, I would say this, the great thing about most old Star Trek novels, which at this point is what you're mostly going to be dealing with. Like such as this situation where I'm like, hey,
Yeah.
they wrote a novel where this is a thing.
Yeah.
It sucks in this situation because it's a whole line of novels. But every once in a while, they'll do like a follow-up, and you could probably get it for like 90 cents, 50 cents on Kindle on good days, and just like, read that shit and be like, oh, cool, that was neat.
Sure. It's more the lack of focus in my life. I
understand that.
Don't get through a book very fast. So, like, if I had more time and energy to sit down and just casually read a book, I probably would do that. Because, like, everything is piratable, even if you can't find it for 90 cents. Like, you can find it for free. And that's not a good thing to do, so I do not actually recommend it. But, on occasion, it is wiser to waste an EPUB on your iPad than buy another book that you don't have space for. Because Lord knows I've done that. But I also just have friends with all of the Star Trek novels, so I could borrow them. I'll be fine.
You do?
I do.
Really? Not
They're
me?
somewhere in their basement. Not my basement, because, that's where Irrelevant Effie lives, but...
But you're not talking about me, right? You're talking about somebody else?
No. Yeah,
Ooh.
someone closer by that I could actually physically borrow a book from. It would be a lot of postage if we were borrowing books from each other. That would be.
I didn't know you had like such ardent Star Trek fan friends.
Oh yeah, I do, and I have to force them to shush their mouth when they almost spoil something that is years ahead of me.
Did they listen to this show?
On occasion, yeah, no, I've definitely recommended it because they'd better.
I'm always
if
telling
you're
you
not
stuff.
hearing this, what the fuck are you doing? Anyway,
I'm always telling you stuff
Shout
that
out.
happens in the future.
Yeah, but relevant to where I am, and then I'll forget.
Yeah.
But they can occasionally just. It's more like, oh, this is our opinion of this show, and then I'm like, I don't want to know that before I get into that show because I might love it. I don't need that kind of spoilers.
Yeah. Star Trek fans are awful about telling you what you shouldn't watch. And I'm like, dude, stop. Stop.
Yeah. No, I'll first of all, I'm doing a podcast. I'm watching all of it. I'll be fine.
That's right. You tell them.
Exactly. But I don't want to have preconceived notions of like, oh, this captain kind of sucks. Like, no, fuck off. I don't want to know that.
Yeah.
I'll forget it.
Also, none of the captains suck. Screw them.
I am paraphrasing. Don't worry. They're not hating on anything particularly more than you would, because I've heard you about some shows be like, the writing on this one is not. But
yeah, I mean, it depends. As for me, like a lot of people will just be like, "Oh, Voyager sucked," and I'm like, first two seasons were pretty damn good. And I need to rewatch more to make assertions on later things.
On the rest, yeah, sure.
Like, there are issues in Voyager, but there are also, there are issues in everything.
Yeah, there are issues in, we talk about the issues on this show.
Yeah.
Like, we're barely into it, and we're like, yeah, there are issues. Of course there are, but that's part of the charm.
Like, watching, like Deep Space Nine is 7 seasons. The first 2 seasons are a bit slow. It's totally eating your vegetables before dessert, because the rest of the show is
cool.
Fire.
That works.
It's so good.
Just wait for it. We're getting there.
And you'll be glad you had your vegetables too, because you'll be like, "Oh, this is."
Of course, because you needed all that.
It snuck up on me. I didn't realize how deep this shit was. Holy shit!
That's delightful. I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah.
But also, like, anything you love, you can love critically. Like, if you're really into a thing, you'll still dissect the shit out of it. Like, I'm madly in love with Batman v Superman. Doesn't mean it's 100% I would never change a thing. It's just I love a lot of the shit that's in there, and I will still be okay with certain criticisms.
Yep.
Not all of them, but some of them.
Yeah.
There's just Zack Snyder's Justice League. Sure, it is a bit long for a casual fan, but there's always going to be things where you're like, I probably would have changed that, and I'm probably glad they didn't. Like, I would not have wanted we would have never heard the end of it if Batman had cucked Superman. Like, that would have been the internet would have been ablaze forever. So I'm fine with it just being his kid. But Jesus, stuff like that where like, yeah, some choices are better, not everything is perfect. Like,
Yeah, like I hear things that Zach was going to do, or and
if it were me, I would have just like.
And I'm sitting there going like, "Oh, buddy, you did this to yourself."
Yeah. It could have been a lot worse.
You're so obsessed with Excalibur. Move away from Excalibur.
That's the thing. Make another movie.
Make another movie. Anyway.
Make any other no, but that's true, and I haven't even seen Excalibur yet, but I know enough about it where it's like, yeah, you're really into that thing.
I've seen several Zack Snyder movies. I don't feel like I don't need to see Excalibur at this point.
Well, that's fair. I'll just rewatch some of the Snyder movies I really like, and maybe finish Rebel Moon Part 2 at some point.
Yeah. I will say, Warner Brothers ever puts out the director's cut of Sucker Punch, I am buying that day.
I get that. I will be there.
Pre-orders.
Same as you. Yeah,
pre-orders available. Matter. Let's do this.
Yeah. I will probably not be refreshing as much as with Justice League, but still pretty similar numbers of times, because that was truly like, is it on the Apple store yet? Can I buy this on iTunes? Is it there? Show the fuck up.
Only an extended cut, but I need the director's cut.
No. I know. I meant with Zack's Justice League. That was
yes.
a morning where I was just like, is it 9:00? Please be not. Why is it 9:10 and it's still not there? That was my level of excitement that day. But we had fought for that for years, so it's fine.
Yeah. When it got released here, I was literally like driving home in the middle of a horrendous storm, basically, and I had to park underneath a bridge because
that's just filmic.
It was so like the storm was so bad I could not see to safely drive. Like, I was driving at like 15 miles an hour, terrified that I was going to hit something. And then finally saw the bridge and like parked underneath it. And then it let up long enough for me to go to a freaking Love's, which is like a convenience store that has big spaces in the back for trucks, and they have showers and stuff for truck drivers.
Oh, yeah.
So I went there and hung out for like 2 hours until the storm passed. And I was just like, I just want to get home to watch Justice League.
Yeah.
And I did. I came home and I watched all like 4 hours, and I was like just weeping uncontrollably. Not from the movie, but because I was so tired. My eyes were just like
not a great
tears.
First watch. Yeah, just I want to go to bed, but also it's 3 more hours.
Anyway,
very cinematic. I can see the short film this could have been.
Yeah, I was like, that was great. Totally could have been an hour and a half.
I mean, not all of it, but it could have been a good, I don't know, 2.5, 3. Like, that would have been possible. But I'm very glad we got 4. Like, I'm good with it.
God,
just gotta pause somewhere in the middle and have some food.
Yeah, he's like hedonism bot with his freaking editing. Like, just cut it down, man. Anyway.
Yeah. It is the one time he had every excuse to actually shove everything in there, but outside of that, on a regular movie, please cut it down. Rebel Moon could have probably been 1 fucking part, and I would have enjoyed it more. I can guarantee that without having seen the second half.
Well, Netflix has got to make this a business because they know that people are going to watch both PG movies, and then they're going to watch the both R-rated movies, and there's going to be a lot of conversation about how the PG movies suck, and it's going to be a whole thing. Like,
yeah, but like if the PG movies suck, I'm still gonna have trouble getting enthusiastic for the R-rated ones. Because at this point, I'm just like, God, do I need to watch part 1 again in R? Will that make much of a difference? Can I just skip to part 2 in R? Anyway, it's a whole thing.
yeah.
I've seen him. In short, it's just nobody's telling him no anymore.
Yep.
And he thrives with a bit of pushback.
Well, they are telling him no. I just saw an interview, and he really wants to go back to the Army of the Dead universe, and they keep saying, no, more Rebel Moon. And he's like, okay.
No, fair. But like creatively, like, somebody should have told him to get a little less slow, basically.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how you get that little story that spread out over so much time. It's the ultimate crime, really, like making a thing very pretty but also boring. It's just, where's my story?
Yeah,
let someone else write the story, please.
To be fair, I know people who love it.
Yeah.
But
are those the people who were gonna love it from the moment it was announced?
Probably, but you know what? Like I can't be mad that studios are letting a director do what he wants.
No, sure, but it is. I'm not saying let an executive be in the room. It's like I feel like his creative team has gone to a point where there's no one in the room challenging his ideas or coming up with anything better per se.
Yeah,
because I like that. Like I there is very much this will be cool, I'll do this, and just too much fucking around with the art department, not enough fucking around with the screenwriter.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, that's my opinion. That's totally irrelevant to this episode. Shit, am I the wrong Effie?
Well, we'll get back to Star Trek here. This is the first of 2 times in the original series, Season 2, that Kirk tells an Enterprise crew member he has earned his pay for the week. In this episode, after Chekhov suggests how Apollo might be generating and controlling his energy, Kirk says, Mr. Chekhov, I think you've earned your pay for the week. The next instance will be in the Doomsday Machine. And I have already watched that episode. So I in my rewatch, so I was like...
You remember.
Really? Like, I noticed it when he said it. I was like, God, they were stuck on that.
Them close. Yeah, okay. We have one line we like, and also it's intriguing because of world building things.
Yeah. It is also in this season, in the episode The Apple, where Spock steps out in front of Kirk, and he's like, You're trying to get yourself killed? Do you know how much Starfleet has invested in you? And Spock starts to give a number, and he's like, okay, that's enough.
Yeah.
So, like, clearly they're still thinking, like, money is a thing.
Yeah. That's for now.
So, bubba-dooba-doop. Apollo's giant green hand is referred to in Star Trek Beyond as one of the possible causes of the disappearance of the USS Franklin, and appears in the end credits of that film. I didn't remember that. I had to go back and like look at the end credits. I saw the giant green hand, and I was like, there it is. Yeah,
fair enough.
The giant green hand not only is Apollo himself like looming over the crew members, totally iconic. The giant green hand is one of the things, more so than Apollo for me, that I remember from childhood. Just like, oh my God, a hand came out of nowhere and grabbed the friggin' Enterprise.
Yeah. Oh, delightful. It's just a level of silliness that's fun.
But it was made of energy. It was made of energy.
Yeah, exactly. It just happens to be shaped like something that can grab a thing.
Here's the thing about it. I know we are watching the remastered version.
Mm-hmm.
This is one of those instances where I think the original looked better.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I agree.
Because it doesn't look like... Because the way they did it here, it looks like the hand is growing out of the planet.
Mm-hmm.
And in the original, it was just like a giant green hand in space. I like the angle of the hand better for the hull, where it is on the hull.
Yeah.
I just like the original better. It looked better.
No, the angle is better. I am looking at the stills on the Memory Alpha, but that's not necessarily an improvement. No, it's just that's a shame. I also like the bit more faded, a bit less bright green. It's nice, but it is just a hand that looks better than than the CGI thing.
Yep. Alrighty. So, I think that's it. Next time. Well, wait, do you have anything else on this episode?
I don't think so. I mean, the title is not necessarily very, relevant, but
it is.
Because I was like, let me remember why Adonais is at all related to Apollo, but it's not really. It's just a Percy Shelley reference, and I was slightly disappointed.
Oh yeah. Okay, so you read that. Okay.
Yeah. No, I not necessarily on Memory Alpha or anything, but I just Googled the name and the term, and I was. But there, Memory Alpha just mentioned the pun with Adonais, which is cool. I didn't realize that one yet. I was curious why it had an A instead of just the I. But I looked into that because I was like, am I forgetting my myths? Is there a more relevant related thing I'm not thinking of? Not really. It's just, it sounds Greek, and Mary Shelley's husband was made a thing, so it sounds right. It does have the right tone for it, because mourning is that's the relevant part, I guess.
Yeah, you're mourning for the gods.
Exactly. Yeah.
But yeah,
it was cool.
I'm glad you thought it was cool. See, I never know. I omitted that trivia because I thought it was boring.
Fair. No. This episode is probably more fun to me because I grew up with a bunch of Greek mythology thrown about because of our classical studies in high school, and that's just always been a thing I know stuff about. So that's fun to be like to me, it's like, where I get that the rest of the Pantheon is dead, but also I wanted to see them, damn it.
Yeah.
That's the energy I bring.
Yeah.
So it's always fun. Yeah.
I did too. I got really into Greek mythology in college. And but I was already kind of into it from just childhood and kind of reading up on myths and stuff. So yeah.
There's a take.
The fact that this episode is kind of steeped in that covers a multitude of sins. But yeah. Anyway, anything else?
Yeah. No, don't think so. I think it's been long enough.
Okay. Well, next time Spock is deep in the plaque towel, the blood fever. It's either fight to the death or get you some beaver. Until then, Jolon True, live long, prosper, and of course,
eat a dick, people.
Thank you for listening to the Star Trek Universe Podcast, a Stranded Panda production. If you'd like to hear more from David C. Robertson, check out the DC On Screen podcast or maladjusted.tv for his web videos. If you'd like to hear more from Matthew Carroll, check out the Marvel Cinematic Universe podcast or listen to his music. Just search for Matthew Carroll anywhere you get music.